Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The opening ceremony will start shortly. Thank you.
Stumari is a Georgian word for guest. And hardly in Georgia there exists any other rank higher than that of Stumari. Stumari is a gift of God, said someone a long time ago, and we all agreed. As you touch Georgian land, better fasten your napkin, as you will be taken to the wild ride of feasts and toasts, and whoos, and have some mores. Stumari deserves a royal rest. And when you're ready to see some more, don't ask internet, ask your nearest Georgian. Each of us has already planned where to take you next.
Follow the trail to the magic lakes.
Go where wine was born.
Drive to ancient caves.
Browse the street market.
Jump in the waves. Have a breath of fresh air.
Bar hop through Old City.
Take a break from your smartphone.
Soak in nature. Go see capital of poets.
Sing with our friends.
Dance through the night.
Meet the sky and the mountains.
Stumari is our pleasure, our calling, and our mission is unchanged, to make you fall in love and may that love always bring you back. Be Stumari of Georgia. Great stories guaranteed.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The opening ceremony will start shortly. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, Prime Minister of Georgia, Secretary General of UN Tourism, leaders of global tourism industry, distinguished guests, good morning and welcome to Georgia on this remarkable celebration of World Tourism Day. It is a true honor and privilege for me to welcome you all on this special occasion as we gather under this year's profound theme, Tourism and Peace. Tourism endorses peace by opening doors to dialogue and empowering communities by building bridges between people from different nationalities and backgrounds. When people travel, they experience cultures different from their own that fosters understanding, tolerance, and mutual respect, which is the foundation of peaceful coexistence. Tourism blooms in peace, in an environment of stability, harmony, and respect, values that are shared by all of you, all nations represented here in this room. Hence, all of you, all the global leaders being here in this room, I think we can all agree that the world that encourages travel and encourages cultural exchange is a world that encourages peace. Dear guests, you have all traveled a long way to come here in our home country, Georgia, to celebrate World Tourism Day. And let me tell you that we as a nation, we take peace more than a concept. It is a cornerstone of our identity. Our history is full of wars, yet heroic resistance to protect our country, our dignity, and our freedom. And with that, of course, as a nation, we know the full price of freedom and peace. And yet, we also believe that only with peace, we will be reunited with our brothers and sisters living in currently occupied territories of our country, and together we will continue the path of further prosperity of our country. Today, at World Tourism Celebration Day, we will have outstanding agenda of multiple panel discussions, presentations, as well as opening speeches, but most importantly, we all and you will have multiple opportunities to also explore yourself how the world-famous Georgian hospitality looks like. Hence, with no further ado, I'm honored to welcome His Excellency, Prime Minister of Georgia, for the official opening of World Tourism Day 2024. Your Excellency, please.
To congratulate each representative of the tourism industry on World Tourist Day. Today, Georgia takes pride in hosting distinguished persons from the tourist sector, and it is a profound honor for us to welcome you all in Georgia. This year's theme, Tourism and Peace, highlights the essential connection between these two vital concepts. Peace is paramount for the flourishing of tourists and the promotion of global travel, as well as for dynamic and effective growth of our industry. Equally, tourism fosters friendly relations among peoples, enhances cultural ties between nations, and facilitates the exchange of meaningful ideas and innovative initiatives. Thus, it emerges as a key contributor to the establishment of peace worldwide. Peace policy is the main priority of our political team. We are the only government under which no war has been waged in Georgia for over a decade, and we are doing our best to ensure that this continues also in the future. Today marks exactly 31 years since the fall of Sukhumi, the main city of Abkhazia, and I want to particularly emphasize that for us, the peace policy is also an essential condition which has no alternative for reconciliation. Trust and mutual respect with our Abkhaz and Ossetian brothers and sisters, as well as for the unification of our country. We hope that this policy will soon bring results that will be equally beneficial for all citizens living in this land, Georgians, Abkhaz, Ossetians, and others. Inter alia, we anticipate that each citizen living in these beautiful regions of our country will receive great benefits from tourism in the future. Dear friends, Georgia has cultivated a long-standing and successful partnership with the World Tourist Organization in collaboration that continues to flourish. Our new trends and policies for tourist development are firmly grounded in the principles of sustainable development, actively contributing to the achievement of our sustainable development goals. In this context, the effective utilization of our rich natural and cultural resources is of utmost importance. Since becoming a member of the United Nations World Tourist Organization in 1993, Georgia has made remarkable strides, including our recent election to the Executive Council in 2021 for a 4-year term. This opportunity allows us to play a vital role in shaping the organization's developmental policies. The tourist sector stands as a cornerstone of economic development, and fostering its growth remains a priority for Georgia. It is noteworthy that amid intensive competition, Georgia ranks among the leading nations in this field. Despite the many challenges faced globally, we have achieved remarkable outcomes through the implementation of prudent policies for sustainable tourist development in Georgia. In 2023, tourist revenues reached an impressive $4.1 billion USD, a historic milestone that exceeds pre-pandemic figures by 26%. Moreover, we have experienced a 76% recovery compared to 2019, welcoming more than 7 million international travelers in Georgia. Looking ahead, we anticipate even greater advancements. Projections indicate that we will host 8 million international tourists this year, with tourist revenues expected to rise by 9% to reach 4.5 billion USD. Our international airports are poised to serve up to 6.8 million passengers, reflecting a 14% increase from last year. This growth is fueled by the development of Georgia's tourist potential and active negotiations with airlines, including the enhancement of flight frequencies and the entry of new carriers into the Georgian aviation market. Tourism plays a pivotal role in fostering trust, establishing peace, and promoting the holistic development of nations. And I firmly believe that through our collective efforts, timely and pragmatic decision-making, and the effective implementation of policies, we can further elevate tourism, which serves the best interests of all. I sincerely hope that your visit to our country will be both enjoyable and also productive. Once again, congratulations, and I wish you peace and success in your significant endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And now, to continue our opening ceremony, I would like to welcome Minister of Tourism of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Excellency Mr. Ahmed Al Khatib.
Assalamu alaikum. A very good morning, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, my brother, Zurab. Thank you very much for hosting the World Tourism Day 2024 in this beautiful city. We enjoyed walking around the city yesterday, and actually for the first time ever having 5 meals a day. You know, thank you very much. And we are celebrating the World Tourism Day 2024 in a time where our industry is recovering very fast. And in the first half of this year, we have reached to 1 billion travelers. And it is expected to reach to historical numbers of 1.5 billion international arrivals by the end of this year, which is a very good news for the industry. In a time where the title of this year event is peace, where peace is very fundamental for travel and tourism. And we wish for a more peaceful world in next year, the World Tourism Day. With this increasing number everywhere, we are facing challenges with regards of when it comes to sustainability, and we have experienced the sustainability when we had COVID. And we look at sustainability in Saudi Arabia from 3 angles: from social, economical, and environment. Most of the people, when you talk about sustainability, they think of environmental sustainability. But COVID, we were hit hard by COVID, especially the small and medium enterprises. And we learned the hard way, and we hope, the 80% small and medium enterprises contributing to our industry, and the 45 women working in our industry will not suffer again due to any future crisis such as COVID. Environment is important. Over-tourism became a challenge. Everybody's complaining about over-tourism. We see how some cities are trying to, and asking for less tourists in a time many other countries which I visited wants more tourists because tourism represents the majority of their GDP. So we have to come up with the policies that will help smaller countries in the same time protect the nature and the treasures that we have. And people travel to explore the nature, explore other people cultures. Environmental sustainability is important. That is why Saudi Arabia has established the Global Tourism Sustainability Center that is well funded. And the center started to publish research. And for the first time ever, the center published the baseline of the contribution of our industry to the greenhouse gas emissions, which is not that high. We're contributing to the greenhouse emissions of about 8.2% last year. But we are expecting our industry to double in 10 years. If we don't have the right policies to control, to maintain, or at least reduce the contribution of our industry to the greenhouse gas emissions, we will definitely double this contribution. And I hope that we will not see this. Manpower capacity. After COVID, we are rehiring, and we struggle to rehire. Hotels struggle to rehire talents because they already moved from our industry to other industries. We need to hire people, and young people. 80% of the people, the workforce in our industry are youth, and therefore we need to hire the youth of the future, train them, skill them, and enroll them in our industry in a time where other industries are losing people, like, for example, the e-commerce and many other industries. And therefore, sustainability is a challenge. We need to work together to address it. Manpower capacity is another challenge where we need to work together to address this challenge. Last but not least is the connectivity to reach. My brother, the Minister of Tourism in Jamaica, he said, I asked him why you have not joined us last night. He said, it took me 24 hours to reach here from Jamaica. I have been to the Pacific. And if you want to visit any of the Pacific islands from here, it will take you 2 to 3 days. We held the African Commission in Cabo Verde, and some African countries needs to make 3, 4, 5 stops to fly from their country to Cabo Verde, which is just 2, 3 hours from their home. And therefore, connectivity is important. I traveled to 120 countries in my life, to the Pacific and the Caribbean, and the connectivity is an issue, and therefore we really need to find the way to make the African countries, the Pacific, and the Caribbean are more connected. And those countries they really need the next traveler and the next dollars that will be spent in their homes. Definitely, wherever we go, under the leadership of my brother Zurab, we are discussing these challenges, these issues, because we will continue, and this industry will continue to contribute strongly to the global economy. Today, we're contributing about 10% of the global economy. It is expected to increase to about 12% by 2032. and we are contributing to about 8 to 9% of the global jobs. This industry is important for the global jobs. In Saudi Arabia, we are an oil-based country. You will ask me why you are talking to us. You have a lot of oil. I told you we have decided under Vision 2030 to diversify our economy and to unlock the value of the treasures that we have in Saudi Arabia. For example, the mining, we have the second largest reserve of phosphate, and other industries such as tourism. Back in 2019, tourism used to represent only 3% of Saudi Arabia economy. Today, 5%, and our target is to reach to 10% by 2030. Last year, we received 27 million international arrivals to Saudi Arabia. In 2019, they were only 12 million. And we have all the plans, and we put all the investment. We put big investment, $800 billion to build the new destinations. We want to make return on this investment, to build NEOM, Red Sea, and Qiddiya, and Diriyah, and we have the CEO of Diriyah here. And this investment will help us to share with the world our culture. And when the people travel to the East, they experience the Eastern culture. When they come to the West, and when they come to Georgia, they expect the Western culture. And when they come to the Middle East, they experience the Arabian culture. So we welcome you to visit Saudi Arabia and experience the Arabian culture, which I'm very sure you will love. Finally, I thank you again for receiving us here in the beautiful Tbilisi, and we look forward to working together. And I congratulate you, Prime Minister, for the growing industry and for the strong performance of Georgia in the travel and tourism market. I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. To continue with the opening ceremony, I would like to welcome His Excellency, Minister of Ecology, Environmental Protection and Climate Change, Mr. Aziz Abduhakimov. I'm sorry. Your last name is harder than mine.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Gamar Joba, Your Excellency Prime Minister Kubahidze, Secretary General Polakashvili, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our host, Georgia, for the warm welcome in the beautiful city of Tbilisi. I also thank the UN Tourism Secretariat and Secretary General Polakashvili for bringing our global tourism family together here in his hometown. As we gather to celebrate World Tourism Day, we recognize not only the diversity and beauty of our planet, but the essential role tourism plays in fostering understanding, creating jobs, and driving economic growth. Tourism is more than journey. It is a bridge that unites us, breaking down borders and languages to experience diverse cultures and lifestyles. I congratulate everyone involved in this vibrant industry. Your dedication has made it possible for people worldwide to experience the wonder of travel. Uzbekistan has taken inspiration from Georgia's progress in tourism, especially in developing our tourism strategy. Georgia's visa-free policy, infrastructure improvements, and collaboration with the private sector. Today, we offer visa-free access to 95 countries and e-visas for 55 countries, and I think very soon we will reach Georgia's number of free visa countries. It's, as I know, more than 100. I sincerely thank Secretary General Polakashvili for his support in enhancing Uzbekistan tourism sector, including organizing the 25th General Assembly, launching the International Tourism Academy, and establishing a UN Tourism Thematic Office in Samarkand. Since our presidency of 25th General Assembly, Uzbekistan has seen increased global interest, growing tourist numbers, and rising investments. I extend my best wishes to Malaysia in hosting next World Tourism Day and Saudi Arabia in hosting next General Assembly. Next month, the International Tourism Academy in Samarkand will open, offering cutting-edge program in hospitality, management, hotel operation, and sustainable destination management. This academy will shape the future of global tourism by equipping professionals with the skills to meet market demands. Also very important, the entire tourism sector in our country is undergoing substantial transformation into green and sustainable, including a strong focus on the development of green and ecotourism. On the basis of UN Tourism Thematic Office, we are establishing Green Tourism Certification Center. Also, a number of incentives and subsidies were introduced by Uzbek government to boost green and sustainable tourism. We are hoping that in a short period of time, a full cycle of tourism industry from HoReCa to transport will be transformed into sustainable and climate resilient sector. I believe that the future of tourism should be only green. I invite you all to visit Samarkand, world's capital of cultural tourism, and join us in fostering sustainable, innovative, and culturally rich future for tourism. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And now let us welcome Secretary General of UN Tourism, His Excellency Mr. Zurab Balolikashvili. Your Excellency, please.
Amar Jobat. Salam alaikum, good morning. I mentioned yesterday, and I'm extremely happy to have my good friends, my good ministers, deputy ministers from all over the world celebrating this very special day with me here in my home city. Thank you, Excellencies. For me, it's again great honor and pleasure to have you, and I'm extremely happy, I want to mention again. We celebrated last year excellent World Tourism Day in Saudi Arabia in Riyadh. Next year we are going to Malaysia. Thank you, dear Minister, to be with us on this very important day. And the facts, in last year I've been in Saudi Arabia 10 times, Excellency, and in Uzbekistan I was maybe 7. In Georgia I was 3 times. This is my third trip. Thank you again. Happy World Tourism Day, dear Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, all the government is here with us. I want to wish a happy World Tourism Day. It's an honor to welcome you in my homeland on this special day, a day dedicated to the greatest cause that humanity can have, the pursuit of peace. Dear ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt peace and tourism belong together. Without peace, there is no tourism. At the same time, tourism can build peace, a peace we so desperately need, no more than ever. War is around us. For many of us here in the room, was not just something on TV or in the newspapers. We have lived it and we lived it. We have felt it. And every day we see civilians, especially women and children, suffering. We see cities and villages in troubles. We see entire populations traumatized, economies destroyed. We see geopolitical tension, inequalities, and disinformation. And the planet, too, is crying, facing the climate crisis and biodiversity loss. All of this, ladies and gentlemen, deeply affects our sector, not only in economic terms, but because it breaks the human spirit, the very essence of the tourism. So today we must remember that tourism is not just about economic growth. It is about peace. It is about bringing people together. It is about creating prosperity and well-being. It is a tool for healing, resilience, and regeneration, and a tool for turning travelers into global citizens who care, connect, and stand for the better world. Dear friends, a wise man once said, "Peace is not a destination where you arrive and unpack. Peace is a journey that requires constant effort." We must take this journey together and use tourism wisely and intentionally. Our organization has always evolved as tourism has grown. But of course, peace has been there from very beginning. After the horrors of the world wars, tourism was held up as a way to rebuild and promote peace among nations. And when the World Tourism Organization was created in 1975, Article 3 made international understanding, peace and prosperity the fundamental aim of the organization. Now, half a century later, we must remember this mission and live its values. So today I call on all of you to help build a peace-sensitive tourism sector. On that, ensure tourism plays a key role in building peace and ending conflicts, provides tourism stakeholders with tools to realize this potential, produce guidelines for tourism education and peace education, and links tourism to other peace-building initiatives. I see a future where UN tourism and all partners work hand in hand towards a more just and peaceful world. Together we can create a tourism sector that does not just react to conflict, but prevent it, resolve it, and heals its wounds. Let us work together, dear friends, for our families, our children, and for the generation to come. May our sector finally become what it was always meant to be, a force for building a better and more peaceful world. Happy World Tourism Day, and welcome again to Georgia. Thank you.
Tourism knows no borders. It celebrates our rich diversity. At the same time, it reinforces our common humanity. Tourism shapes how we see the world and how we treat others. When intolerance, insecurity, and discrimination threaten to tear us apart, tourism brings us together. It connects age-old traditions with cutting-edge innovation. It celebrates dynamic cities as well as peaceful rural communities. And it opens our minds to different viewpoints and cultures. On World Tourism Day 2024, we stand together in a message of peace. Tourism's ability to build connections and foster understanding must be fully embraced. Education is the best tool to fight misinformation and deliver opportunity, especially for global youth. And guaranteeing the freedom to travel and to learn can lay the foundations for resilient and inclusive peace. The host of this year's celebrations, Georgia, stands out as a beacon of hope in difficult times. Here, peace has brought with it prosperity, and it has allowed Georgia to open its doors to the world. On World Tourism Day 2024, a sector unites to reaffirm its commitment to building a peaceful future for all.
Tourism brings progress. As one of the biggest sectors in the global economy, it has great power to bridge cultures, generate new opportunities, and promote sustainable development.
Thank you, Secretary General. Thank you for the inspiring video. As we conclude our opening ceremony, I would like to invite our final speaker, our keynote speaker, His Excellency Minister of Guatemala, Harris Whiteback. Your Excellency, please.
Is there a clicker?
Thank you very much. Good morning. Mr. Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Secretary General, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, thank you very much. When I was at the beautiful welcoming reception last night, I remembered a day back in December of 1991 when I was a young reporter and I had been assigned to our networks bureau in Moscow to cover the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And one snowy afternoon there, news came of a coup d'etat here in Georgia. And I remember the deployment of the first all-woman correspondent team to come here to cover the events, led by Christiana Mampour, camerawoman Mary Rogers, and producer Jane Evans. And those three young women at the time, they came here and they covered the events, and then they went back to Moscow and told the story of what a difficult time it was and how life-changing that was for them and for what happened in this country. And so to see how things have evolved in Georgia in these years and to celebrate that last night was truly inspiring. So thank you for that. I want to share a story with you today, and it's one that really explains why I'm here. And I promise it'll make sense. I hope you don't mind that it's a bit personal, but my journey has shaped my perspective in ways that a photographer's lens comes into focus, capturing the beauty and the complexity of our world. When I was a child growing up in Guatemala City, I would always ask my mother to take me to La Aurora Airport in Guatemala City to watch airplanes land and take off. I was captivated by watching them, dreaming about where they might go, memorizing their flight schedules, making up stories in my head about the passengers inside of them. But I wasn't content just to be a plane spotter. I wanted to be one of those adventurous passengers. I longed to explore unknown cities and faraway lands and connect with the people living in them. Decades later, I became a journalist. Since then, I have traveled extensively, covering everything from natural disasters to man-made crises. And deep down inside of me, eventually that curious child started hoping for something more. And I started looking for stories not just about hardship, violence, and injustice, but about people seeking out meaningful connections that would lead to building community, creating hope and possibilities of growth and development. I realized early on the powerful potential that tourism has to unite us, to foster peace and understanding. Because when communities share their stories and cultures, that cultivates pride and a sense of belonging. And that's where hospitality really shines, which is something we especially need now more than ever. With the world population projected to reach around 10 billion by 2050, the need for connection is urgent. And the potential for that connection is growing. As has been said, UN Tourism reported close to 1 billion international arrivals this year. By the end of this year, more than 1 billion arrivals. That's about 15% of the world's population visiting one another. We are definitely back to pre-pandemic levels. And my country, Guatemala, welcomed over 2.5 million tourists last year, with 76% of them being visitors who wanted to visit some of our many sites around the country. This highlights a great opportunity to embrace peace and sustainability through tourism. And we are doing that in Guatemala, finding ways to ensure that every visit offers the chance to learn, share, grow, and crucially to preserve our environment for future generations. And we have found the immense potential to do that by simply listening. Reaching out to local communities in areas of great potential for tourism, spending time talking with them, hearing their own ideas about how they want to receive visitors, share their stories in ways that lead to understanding and eventually creating peace. Recently, I had the privilege to accompany our product development team to visit the La Técnica Cooperative in Petén, our northernmost department, which houses many archaeological sites and borders our neighbor Mexico. This community was founded by families returning from exile after the Civil War in the 1990s. As part of the 1996 peace accords, they were granted tracts of land in the forest in exchange for their responsible stewardship of its resources. They have embraced tourism as a vital part of their economic strategy, focusing on sustainable practices that protect the rich biodiversity of the Lacandon National Park. Through ecotourism, guided tours, cultural and gastronomical experiences, hiking and river rafting, they're attracting visitors eager to connect with nature and local culture and to visit the many pre-Hispanic archaeological sites in the region. This not only generates income, but also empowers the community and inspires it to preserve their cultural heritage and natural environment. Many other forest communities across northern Guatemala are following suit. They recognize that tourism can not only create jobs and improve livelihoods, but also strengthen conservation efforts and educate visitors on the importance of preserving nature. This collaborative approach fosters community pride and stewardship, ensuring that tourism benefits both the forest and its inhabitants. Take Huashactung, for example, which is another forest community in Petén. This archaeological site near the ancient Maya city of Tikal is rich in history and was once an important astronomical observatory. It too is surrounded by lush rainforest, and the local guides, who are descendants of the ancient Mayans, share their knowledge about the site. Huashactung is also committed to ecotourism, offering nature walks and bird watching and workshops on sustainable practices. Income generated from tourism supports local education, health services, and soon infrastructure, empowering the community and creating opportunities for young people to stay and invest in their home instead of having to migrate for work. The success of this community-led tourism model is in that it is all about collaboration. Local leaders partner with organizations focused on sustainable development, ensuring that the benefits of tourism are shared equally. And now the government is paying attention, listening to them, understanding how they want to be represented, and acting as a bridge between their aspirations and the resources they need. Today, Huashactung is not just preserving its cultural heritage, it's demonstrating how community-led tourism can provide sustainable livelihoods while fostering environmental stewardship and cultural pride. This model is an inspiring example for communities in Guatemala and beyond. These communities are building peace and understanding by welcoming visitors who not only marvel at their breathtaking natural beauty and archaeological sites, but also learning from their way of life. Visitors leave having learned about their deep respect for the forest and its wildlife, the wisdom passed down from their ancestors who once gazed at the stars to navigate the world. Because for hospitality to truly be a force for change, it must be reciprocal. Visitors and hosts should learn from one another, ensuring their interactions are mutually beneficial. In this interconnected world, we owe it to those who came before us and to those who will come after to prioritize that sustainability in tourism. During my time as a journalist, I've seen how even brief encounters with locals can transform a visitor's perspective. Back in 2003, I had the opportunity to cover significant events for CNN, including the brutality of the war in Iraq. While it was at times dangerous and incredibly stressful, my time there helped me shape my view, not of the war, but of the humanity of the Iraqi people. At the Ziggurat of Ur, the ancient Sumerian temple that is one of the few remaining examples of the glories of ancient Mesopotamia, I met an elderly man who refused to leave the site as war rumbled in the distance. He was the caretaker of the Ziggurat and the last remaining civilian in the region. He stayed at his post as US Marines tasked with taking control of the area arrived in force. But despite the presence of American soldiers, he eagerly shared with me the history of the ancient Sumerian pyramid, embodying the role of guide, host, and friend. His instinct for hospitality shone through as he offered me tea and stories that transported me back to the second millennium before the Common Era. He told me many believed the Ziggurat was the site of the birth of the prophet Abraham, and his hospitality and determination to stay at that sacred site of profound significance for humanity left a lasting impression on me. Just last week, I found myself once again engaging with the legacy of Abraham in Abu Dhabi, where I visited the Abrahamic Family House. This stunning cultural center honors the three major religions stemming from Abraham, and it was deeply moving to see how it fosters understanding and peace through tourism, and it's already attracting thousands of visitors from around the world. So just like my own childhood visits to the airport in Guatemala City sparked my own journey, we now have the opportunity to create new models of tourism exchange that enrich nations and foster neighborliness. The flow of millions traveling to marvel at one another's homes can only inspire us to truly understand and appreciate each other, giving new meaning to arrivals and departures and bringing about more peace. Thank you very much.
Please remain seated. The next session will start shortly. Thank you. Distinguished guests, please remain seated. The next session will start shortly. Thank you. Distinguished guests, please remain seated. The next session will start shortly. Thank you. Distinguished guests, please remain seated. The next session will start shortly. Thank you. Distinguished guests, please remain seated. The next session will start shortly. Thank you. Distinguished guests, please remain seated. The next session will start shortly. Thank you. Distinguished guests, please remain seated. The next session will start shortly. Thank you. Distinguished guests, please remain seated. The next session will start shortly. Thank you. Distinguished guests, please remain seated. The next session will start shortly. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. May I please kindly invite all of you to take your seats, because we would quite like to move on with the next session, which is going to be a high-level ministerial dialogue on building bridges through tourism. Before I start, ladies and gentlemen, in a world shadowed by conflict, travel and tourism stands as a profound act of service, often overlooked, but more powerful than it appears and more transformative than we acknowledge. If war is the darkest expression of human encounter and meeting of nations, tourism is its brightest. It's a gentle revolution, one that expands minds and opens hearts, allowing us to see truth and enabling us to learn more about the world than what our newspapers will tell us. To travel is to share, to listen, and to learn. It is to encounter another's story, and in doing so, reshape your own. In the sacred exchange called tourism, we emerge as a silent but mighty force, one that dismantles assumptions, shatters biases, and reveals the vibrant humanity beneath every label, every divide, and every stereotype. Tourism's role in this fractured world may seem trivial and frivolous, especially to be on this high-level political agenda, but let me assure you, the Secretary General is not underestimating its latent power, because when wielded wisely, tourism can become one of the most potent instruments of peace ever known to mankind. Because in tourism lies a unique power, a soft power, that can transform battlegrounds into bridges, turn wounds into wisdom, and strangers into allies. As we stand here today for a moment, can we acknowledge how privileged every single one of us are? We are privileged because we stand in the shelter of peace. And as the Secretary General said before, there are still millions who are living in the shadow of war, division, and systemic violence. From Tbilisi, just beyond the horizon, violence echoes less than 1,000 kilometers away. And it's not just full-blown war that I'm talking about. There are 110 armed conflicts going around in some part of the world as we speak. And each of these conflicts is a tragedy, but it is also an opportunity to rebuild what has been destroyed, not just in the physical spaces, but in the hearts and minds of nations. History is witness to this. Rwanda, Bosnia, Colombia, Cambodia, Northern Ireland, nations that have been ravaged by the unspeakable have risen before from the ashes, embracing tourism as a means to heal and thrive. Think about it. 1.3 billion people cross the international borders every year. Think about the power in that number. That is 1.3 billion opportunities for walls to come down, for hearts to connect across divides. 1.3 billion moments where someone can step out of their bubble of privilege and step into someone else's reality. Now, not every traveler is going to be a beacon of change, and that's perfectly fine. But what if only 1% of that 1.3 billion people became champions of peace? That would mean 13 million ambassadors of hope each year. I call them the peace soldiers of tourism, 13 million peace soldiers of tourism. Your Excellencies, distinguished ministers of tourism, Secretary General of United Nations, His Excellency Mr. Zurab Pololikoshvili, Chief Executive of the Executive Council, the Vice Chairs representing the Vice Council, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pride and privilege to welcome you all as we gather to celebrate World Tourism Day, especially so as this year we unite under the vital theme of peace and tourism. A quiet, unstoppable force, a power that can rebrand nations, turn war zones into beacons of hope, and division into dialogue. Welcome one and welcome all. We are now ready to invite 4 ministers of tourism, all of whom have a very fascinating perspective to share. And I'm going to start with the Deputy Minister from Georgia, Her Excellency Miriam Quishvili, who serves as the Deputy Minister in Georgia's Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development. Her role places her at the forefront of a transformative period in Georgia's tourism and aviation sectors, and we are privileged to have you, Madam Minister. I especially love how you've spoken about the privilege and responsibility of showing the world not just the picturesque landscapes of Georgia, but the stories of its people, stories of resilience, creativity, and warmth. Welcome. Next, we have His Excellency Aziz Abdul Kakimov, who is the Minister of Ecology, Environmental Protection and Climate Change from Uzbekistan. His leadership embodies a deep respect for Uzbekistan's rich ecological heritage, but also a forward-thinking vision for its future. And what inspired me most, sir, is your personal commitment to engaging with local communities, because you frequently travel to remote regions within Uzbekistan, meet with farmers, activists, and citizens to understand their needs and to ensure the policies that you come up with are not just theories, but useful for those who you are generating it for. Welcome. Next, we have Her Excellency Nabila Farida Tunis, who is the Minister of Tourism and Cultural Affairs for Sierra Leone. She is a passionate leader dedicated to promoting her country's cultural richness, and with her at the helm, Sierra Leone's tourism industry is already flourishing, and I'm sure her vision for sustainable, community-driven development will continue to shape the future of the sector under her vision. Welcome. And finally, last but not the least, we have Her Excellency Fatima Jafar Al Saifafi, who is the Minister of Tourism for the Kingdom of Bahrain, where she plays a critical role in shaping the country's tourism strategy. Under her leadership, she has encouraged private sector involvement, supporting small and medium enterprises' growth, especially women-led growth in hospitality, and she's striving to create new opportunities for employment. Your Excellency, welcome, and I appreciate how you continue to create a bridge between Bahrain's storied past and its dynamic future. I would love all of you to answer this question, because at the end of the day, some of the biggest transformations happen when, not from books, but when you visit a place. And as leaders, I'm sure your personal encounters with conflict zones or post-conflict zones provide a unique lens into the real human stakes of peace building. If I can start with you, and I would love all of the ministers to respond to this question, please. May I ask you to think of one conflict or post-conflict destination that you would have visited, which completely took you by surprise, made you challenge your preconceived notions, and transformed your perspective on tourism's role in peace building.
Good afternoon, once again. It's working, yes. Once again, good afternoon. I'm very delighted to be part of this panel with my good friends coming from different countries to celebrate World Tourism Day in my home country, Georgia. Well, I think I'd rather talk about my country because it's more personal, and when it comes to conflict, when it comes to wars, when it comes to protecting freedom, our country, our identity, I think we can speak from our heart because every Georgian has gone through the conflict. Every Georgian in this country knows the value of peace and freedom, and we've also witnessed the development of the country, of our own country after the conflict. So even our recent history, and just to give you an overall background, our country's 20% is still occupied by Russia, right? So we, as a nation, still managed, and in Prime Minister's speech, he also highlighted that for last 12 years, our country ensured continuous stability and peace and harmony in the country, which is obviously the outstanding achievement, but at the same time, granted opportunity not only to government, but also, most importantly, small, medium-sized businesses that you've also highlighted in your speech, opportunity to grow, opportunity to invest, opportunity to recruit and create new jobs and develop new industries. So, of course, that has been a breakthrough. And as government and as country, we believe that everything starts from peace. Everything starts from stability, and then, of course, we base everything on it. Most important is obviously to ensure that our citizens feel free. It is a democratic state, and it's very important that everyone has freedom of expression, freedom of speech. But we're also very proud as a small nation that every guest that comes to Georgia, they also feel at home. Yesterday we had opportunity to walk around Tbilisi, right? And our dear guests also witnessed how our old part of the city is actually structured. So you would see Christian Orthodox Church, right next to it you would see synagogue, and right next to it you would see mosque. So this is a very good definition and reflection for centuries how Georgia has developed. A lot of people from different backgrounds, different nationalities, different beliefs, we all live together peacefully and happily, and this is how we've reached to the stage where now Georgia is at the edge of Europe and Asia and continues further development.
Fantastic. Your Excellency, what is your choice of destination going to be that reshaped your vision and view on what tourism can do for peace?
Thank you for your question, and I think all of us understanding that where is some conflict, it's no tourism at all. That's why I can bring the sample of Uzbekistan, my country, and for many thousands of years and for many centuries, we was the center of Silk Road, and the place where different religious mentalities, cultures, languages, civilizations meets, and now I can say we are really peaceful place, and in our country in peace living more than 140 nationalities and nations, and we have all religions, and I can say it's very important to promote this idea. And for example, ordinary Uzbek speaks at least 3-4 languages. So Uzbek, Russian, English, Persian language, and many other languages. And that's why I think it's very important also to promote the idea of our esteemed Secretary General. He is always saying that visas, it's something like that divides the people, not unites. So that's why I fully agree with him. I think if all countries will promote this idea, visa-free, and our country also, we had a very good experience to eliminate visas, and now, as I said, we have 95 visa-free countries, and citizens of these countries can easily visit us just buying ticket. So, and also it gives us a lot of economical benefits. So we are developing our economy, we attracting a lot of investment in hospitality and other industries. So that's why only peace can bring us prosperity and development. And also, just let me give also one of our advantages. We also established so-called tourism police. tourism policy. And now, according to the last Safety Perception Index for 2023, Uzbekistan achieved first place in this index as the safest country in the world among 121 countries.
Congratulations, thank you. I should have actually said you can't choose your own country to start with. But because I didn't, I'm on to you, Madam Minister. What would your pick be?
Well, again, thank you very much. And first of all, let me wish everyone a happy World Tourism Day. But again, I have to, reflect on Sierra Leone because it is another post-conflict country. And what struck me, when I was appointed as Minister of Tourism and Cultural Affairs was the depth of talent and the richness of our culture. And quite frankly, I never realized the nexus between peace and tourism until I was appointed minister. And being a country that had been recovering from, a very, intense civil conflict, there was one thing that we looked into. How could we harness the talent of our young people? The group of people that we refer to now as the Gen Zs, most of them were born during and after the war. And I realized that as Minister of Tourism and Cultural Affairs, interacting, with the wider population, with communities in my country, I realized that the creativity of this group of people was enormous. And what did we do as a ministry? We ensured that, first of all, the structure of the ministry was reviewed in a way to incorporate the creatives and innovation. So now we have an entire directorate that focuses on creativity and innovation. But again, we thought again that it's really important for the ordinary citizen to understand the value of tourism. Because it's one thing to have a beautiful country. It's one thing to have a lot of touristic offerings and products. But again, the people themselves need to understand this value. They have to be involved in preserving and protecting and promoting, the touristic offerings and products that we have. So what we did was to more or less design, what we refer to as the Tourism for All campaign. It's a year-long campaign that seeks to empower communities and ordinary citizens about the value of tourism. And we aim to reach about 3.5 million people. We're actually in the 9th month, and each month is modeled along specific themes. And we're reaching out into communities. Out of the entire country, we've covered about 80%, and we're still moving. And that is focusing basically on domestic tourism, but with international tourism as well. We have entered more into the space of MICE tourism. So this is another strategy that we're using to unearth the potential and the touristic offerings that we have as a country. Thank you.
Fantastic. Madam Minister, last but not the least, what is your pick of destination going to be?
Thank you, Ardana, and thank you for Georgia for hosting this great event that we're so all very happy to be here and to talk about something that is very close to all of our hearts. And I'm sure that Ardana, when the ministers, their excellencies, have spoken about peace, it really came out of the heart. And one thing that comes to mind, a few days ago, leaders of the world joined in the UN General Assembly. And when you hear their speeches, there is one theme that has been constantly brought up in all of their speeches that revolved around peace. And today, with the World Tourism Day being revolving as well around tourism and peace, it gives you an indication how important tourism is to factor into peace in all our nations and to global peace. And if I may just take a moment to reflect on the speech that has been given by His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Bahrain, and him mentioning that there has to be a commitment to peace building, and it has to be a bedrock for sustainable peace across the world. It also has to be a door opener for having a collective multicultural pluralism, which Bahrain has always been an advocate of. To have collective prosperity is not possible if we don't have peace. And I believe that, joining us today, the Ministers of Tourism always will believe in that. And maybe I will not choose one country that poses a case study, because I do believe that there are so many countries around the world that pose an amazing case study on how tourism has been a beacon of hope for prosperity and for economic growth. But what I will say is that you cannot achieve peace if you do not invest heavily in the local communities who are going to preserve the cultural heritage of the country and also the economic prosperity of the country as well.
Well spoken, all accepted, and you did choose your country because you did quote your Prime Minister and His Royal Highness, but very well chosen words. I will come to you now, Madam Minister. Georgia is at the crossroads of Europe and Asia and has long been a bridge between different cultures, religions, and empires. You also, as you mentioned in your address, you have a history of resilience. You have faced conflict over South Ossetia and Aksapia, as you said. You have the current ongoing war not far from where you are. You have the part of the country which is still occupied. Yet the fact is, all of us are here today because we perceive Georgia to be an extremely safe and secure destination. And all of this experience makes Georgia a country with a very unique perspective and experience on the role of tourism in peace building. My question to you is, on the one hand, you have growing instability in the region around you, and on the other hand, you have the task of communicating to the world that this is a safe and secure destination with all the geopolitical challenges. And on the third side, you have internal challenges that you're grappling with. How do you manage all of that? And how do you use tourism as an instrument of peace?
I think this is an extremely interesting and important question, and you've really touched down to the major challenge that our country is going through for years already. But nowadays, I mean, I think what's going on in the world and the region especially, of course, this challenge has significantly increased. Like you rightly said, but one tiny remark, that we are not currently in a conflict. Unfortunately, though, our country's 20% is yet still occupied. Our government's approach is pragmatic policy. And by that, what we mean and what we prove is that for the last 12 years, we've been having continuous stability, peace for our people and for our guests coming to our country as travelers, as tourists, or as investors. What we've created is an environment for everyone, but first and foremost for our people, right? So safety has always been our #1 priority. And I'm very proud that today, for the last, I would say maybe minimum 5 to 7 years, Georgia is officially ranked as world's safest destination, and we're not going up then number 7, number 8, number 6, and number safety index. Of course, this has granted us opportunity to speak out loud, and like you rightly asked the question, how do we make it happen? And again, response is pragmatic. This answer would not be simple because this includes multiple components and multiple directions, but we remain loyal to one core agenda, which is preserving peace, stability, and safety. Accordingly, of course, tourism is a very, very big part of our culture. And we always say that, you know, we might not have the best service experience, you might find better hotels somewhere else in the world, but what you won't find is the people. Georgians, we always say, we kind of have tourism in our DNA because we have a saying in our culture that a guest is a gift from God. And that is why in our home country, we actually don't like calling tourists tourists. We call them guests. And now you can imagine every tourist coming to Georgia for the first time, they feel like they're at home because they feel welcome. They feel the smile coming from the heart. So that has been one of the biggest trigger points why, for instance, our country has one of the biggest trend of travelers coming back. So in average, if you take our statistics, our tourist statistics, one traveler comes back to Georgia minimum 3 times, which is, for us, a very big compliment. Of course, a lot helps that we have 4 season destination, And of course, we invest heavily in tourist infrastructure and municipal infrastructure. But on top of it, Georgia was one of the first countries also in the region to open up borders. Almost everyone in the world, you all come from different countries. I bet 99.9% of you didn't require visa to travel. We have direct flights to more than 110 routes from this country, up to 60 airlines operating. So our policy is openness, openness for connectivity, openness for no visa requirements, and this has shaped our country's tourism industry's development in such short notice. And it's also another reflection how welcome we are.
Fascinating. I have to say, Georgia, apart from being welcoming and having high degrees of repeat visitation, used to be the only country with its fantastic wine to hand over every guest arriving at immigration a bottle of one of your fantastic wines by the immigration officer. Welcome to Georgia, and here's your bottle of wine.
Well,
which
one
is
final
fantastic.
remark, if I may say, since you touched the wine topic, is that there is only one country in the whole world which is the birthplace of wine, which is Georgia, which is scientifically proven. That is why wine has been and is a very, very big part of our culture. And yes, multiple times we've done it, that we've gifted souvenir wine bottles to the guests coming into our country at the airports as well as at the land borders.
Excellent. Your Excellency, you mentioned Silk Road. Uzbekistan has been the cultural hub of the Silk Road for centuries. Exchange of culture, trade, and everything happening in the Silk Road. And obviously, instrumental or central to Silk Road has been cross-border collaboration. My question to you is, how are you using tourism diplomacy to foster greater stability in Central Asia? Because it's a big region.
Oh, thank you for the question. I am always saying that hospitality in our DNA. So I think this also gives us a lot of incentives to live in peace and prosperity with our neighbors. And also, I can say we have a very close, let's say we are living like brothers with our neighbors. I give you just one numbers to you. The total population of Central Asia, approximately 70 million. And last year, Uzbekistan was visited more than 7 million visitors from neighboring countries. It means almost 10% of total population of Central Asia visited us. But half of this number, of course, it's Uzbekistan. We have a population 35 million. It means more than even 20% of our neighbors visited Uzbekistan. And recently we very closely collaborating with my colleagues from neighboring Central Asian countries, and we are developing so-called Silk Visa. It means you can just take one visa and visit all 5 Central Asian countries. Also, we are now participating in many international tourism fairs, exposing our single exposition. For example, in Japan, Japan Tourism Fair, we participated with a single pavilion, all 5 countries, and we promote Central Asia again. So I can say we don't have any problems with our neighbors. We call it zero problem with our neighbors. And I can say we are also promoting education as one of our key areas to collaborate. Thanks to UN Tourism, in support of UN Tourism, we established Tourism Academy in Samarkand, and we're providing more than 150 scholarships for our neighboring countries. Also, we are promoting Central Asia as one and single tourism destination. And we have the touristic products which very fit to each other. If we are talking about Uzbekistan, it's cultural tourism, but we have Kazakhstan and Kyrgyz, which is famous for nomadic tourism. So we can combine and get the benefits to proposing cross-country tours and products.
That's a great example of building stronger cultural and economic ties. Thank you very much, Minister. Madam Minister, Sierra Leone in the past has faced a brutal civil war, but it's also a country that has demonstrated the power of reconciliation and rebuilding as an example in the entire region. You have the portfolio of tourism now, but previously you also had foreign affairs and international cooperation. My question is now, what tourism strategies have you put in place to ensure that it's not just the rich, but it's the communities that have been most affected by conflict who are going to be receiving the benefit of your policies? How do you ensure tourism goes to the most needy, the most deserving?
Thank you very much. Again, I may refer again to the Tourism for All campaign, which we rolled out this year, which is, a microcosm of our approach to tourism. We strongly believe in the principle of leaving no one behind. And as a country that understands, the weight of instability, we do realize that some of the causes, the root causes of the war, was exclusion. So being a tourism minister, understanding as well from an international cooperation aspect and utilizing diplomacy as well within the tourism sector has been one of the key approaches that we have adopted, as a ministry. And through the Tourism for All campaign, we've been able to reach out to each and every nook and cranny of the country to get communities fully involved and fully engaged in tourism. Because one thing we have realized in Sierra Leone, and I'm sure it's the same for several other countries, the current population that is brimming with knowledge, that has a depth of talent, they're the young people. And these people are the future. And these people also understand, the problems that are associated with war. And they also understand that because they have a God-given talent, and the only sector that they can utilize that talent is tourism. So it automatically gives them a space in the development trajectory of our country. So aside from having tourism as a sector that does build, bridges for culture and peace, we've also ensured that it is incorporated in our current medium-term national development as a critical enabler. So things like education are supporting our tourism growth because we're reaching out to communities, harnessing the talent that they have, utilizing education to bring it up to a productive level. And currently in Africa, that the majority of the workforce, about 70% of the tourism workforce are women. And in Sierra Leone, harnessing, the various different talents that we have, from entertainment to weaving to craftsmanship, all sorts of different, skills that we've been able to harness, has given us this saying that every woman has a productive space in Sierra Leone's tourism industry. So we're reaching out to communities, especially those communities that bore the brunt of the war, the ones in the south, the ones in the east, where they went through a horrendous period. And we've brought them on board because it seems as if, and I'm sure probably maybe other countries would be interested in doing some studies. I'm not sure whether it's the 11-year war that brought about some amount of resilience and an appetite for creativity in our people. And going into these communities, we realized that we have a depth of talent that needs to be tapped into and brought to the table and brought to a productive level. So we're reaching out aggressively. We're utilizing the different channels that we have, organizing ourselves to get into the communities, bring them to a platform through carnivals. We had open-air carnivals, cultural carnivals, which are open platforms for people to express, their different culture and the talent that they have. And this is what we're bringing together, in our country, and we're promoting that talent. Currently, as Sierra Leone chairs the Women in Tourism Leadership African Committee, and we're having a congress in Freetown from the 29th to the 31st of October next month. And this congress seeks, to move beyond empowerment to access to finance, access to innovation and education, utilizing these tools to build the capacity of women. Because we do know that they do have a space within the tourism industry. But again, it's not, really the space that you would think is, an appreciable space for women. We need to ensure that their capacity is built to that level where they're at a leadership status. And aside from having the Congress, it's also an opportunity for us to reach out to other, similar countries within the region, and also maybe promote an agenda item that will be taken on board by all member states that would seek to promote, and advance women's empowerment within the tourism sector. Interestingly, Sierra Leone did pass a gender equality and women's empowerment bill. So the government is fully and solidly behind the tourism sector because it sees that sector as one sector where we can advance women's empowerment. Thank you very much.
That's a fascinating example because UN Tourism has done a study which says that we have close to 60% women in the lower rungs of hierarchy, but as women climb the ladder, the number of women or the percentage of women in positions of leadership falls with every rung of the career ladder they climb. The public sector does much better than the private sector, where we still only have single-digit women as women CEOs globally. It's something to work on. But thank you very much. Madam Minister, I'm going to pick up on your message of peace, which you shared earlier today. But the fact also is you are in a location which has very complex political landscape. You also have a task of diversifying the economy of Bahrain away from oil. My question is, how does the tourism sector in Bahrain contribute to the broader goal of peace building and international dialogue, especially at scale in the region?
Thank you, Ardana, and that's an excellent question. At the foremost of our priorities, as you rightfully said, is one of the key things that we have started working on and is a part actually of Bahrain's Vision 2030 is diversifying the economy. And I'm happy to say that the recent numbers in the Kingdom of Bahrain, when you look at the tourism contribution in the GDP, fares around 7%, which is quite a high number. And that wouldn't have been possible if the Kingdom of Bahrain didn't create initiatives and a solid ecosystem that supports the local community and the private sector to actually create not only entities that service the tourism industry, but also that ensure that there's a steady flow of job creation as well and sustainability. Which brings me to the point that you just mentioned or highlighted, which is the concept of peace. And I really do believe that without peace in the Kingdom of Bahrain, that wouldn't have been possible. Bahrain has a very unique story when it comes to peace. And I believe that it's one of the only countries in the world where you can actually visit the capital of Bahrain, Manama. And within a 1 kilometer radius, you can visit different places of worship. So within that radius, you can actually visit mosques, churches, the oldest synagogue in the Gulf, a 200-year-old Hindu temple, and that's only within, a very, very closed circle, and all of them within very close proximity. And that just gives you an idea of how the Kingdom of Bahrain decades and centuries ago really built on the fact that it has been a trade hub in the region, which also brings me to the next point where entities, and whether they're local private sector entities or global entities that wish to open up in Bahrain, wouldn't have seen the opportunity to be part of Bahrain's tourism story if that was not in the tourism DNA of the country, where we use tourism as one of our core principles to build peace. And I still remember the other day I was talking to one of the general managers of one of the 5-star hotels in the Kingdom of Bahrain, and he mentioned the fact that the local community in Bahrain is so strong that him as a general manager, he always finds an abundance of supply when it comes to anything that they need. So for example, when we look at the local farmers in the Kingdom of Bahrain, they have created a sustainable food chain for the hotels in Bahrain, where there's such an abundance of, of supplies, of food, that the local or even the five-star hotels in the Kingdom of Bahrain, they choose to actually go to the local farmers for them to create their menus, create their experiences. And that is just one example of what the Kingdom of Bahrain has been doing to ensure that there is sustainability. And also, one of the other examples, or one of the key initiatives that the Kingdom of Bahrain has worked on, is the King Hamad Global Center for Peaceful Coexistence. And through that center, the Kingdom of Bahrain has managed to create effective dialogue on peace building, effective dialogue on promoting mutual understanding. And I do believe that those kinds of initiatives are, in fact, important factors that assist countries to not just position itself on a global scale, but also position themselves as a global tourism destination.
Thank you very much. I love your example of using religious tolerance as a key pillar for building cultural understanding within Bahrain and also in the region. Thank you. If I can come back to you now, Deputy Minister, and I love that the UN tourism video had a point about misinformation, but it's also not just misinformation, it's disinformation, misinformation, and is it malinformation? Because they all have their own different definitions, don't they? But the truth is, we live in an era where there is a lot of disinformation, or it's rampant misinformation. There is nationalism, there is xenophobia, all of which seems to be gaining traction. What I find interesting is tourism is one of those sectors which is completely capable of challenging these narratives and trends. Because when you go visit a place, or when you bring people face to face with another nation, you look at someone in their eye, you have, eaten with them, you've traveled to the country, you start to question the divisive media narratives yourself. And you can actually use that as a fantastic way to disrupt racism and also promote mutual understanding. So in the world that we live in, which is not the best as we see it, how can we ensure that tourism is not just reinforcing the stereotypes, but is actively becoming a tool for dismantling it step by step?
I think today we've all been talking different things, but we all go down to one main narrative, which is tourism connecting people. And I also mentioned in my speech that when we travel, all of us, when people travel, we experience cultures that are significantly different from our own. We meet new people, we understand their cultures, where they're coming from, and their values, and that's when we connect. And that's when we understand that maybe I've read something, oh, this now feels a bit different. So you challenge what you've thought you knew. We as a country, and I bet all of you and everyone sitting in this room, have gone through the bad experience of disinformation. We as a nation, we also strive to ensure that we deliver the message. And unfortunately, it's deliberate or it's not deliberate. We all face disinformation. But of course, I would definitely agree with you that tourism could be and is a vital component of fighting disinformation, because disinformation can be fought by people. And again, with tourism, you understand country, you understand its people, you understand their values, and when you travel, you also understand the state of the country. You asked me in previous times, how you managed, how you persuade people that whatever is going on in your region, they should still travel to Georgia, that it's safe. But it's also word of mouth. I'm pretty sure you've decided to travel to a destination because your friend told you so. Yeah? She was there, he was there, recommended. So it's a good value chain that tourism motivates to trigger. But again, what I believe is that this all goes down to human to human and cultural exchange of information. Also, on another note, I think we've also all experienced that when one part of media goes on disinformation, we have another part of media which talks about travel, tourism, all the positive things that are happening rightly in the country. So it's all about bringing in different information through different channels, through different platforms, to bring out the message which is true, which correctly reflects the country, its people, and its culture.
Fascinating. Madam Minister, I saw you nodding. Do you want to pitch in and weigh in on what...
Well, certainly, and this is really, really critical for us to have a thriving tourism sector. And it's interesting because yesterday walking around, the city gave me a different impression, because most times the perceptions of people influence our decisions, when it comes to tourism. And it depends on how strong your marketing strategy is and how much you reach out into the social media, to portray or, share the value that your country has in tourism. But one thing I have noticed is that we need to make it a habit to visit, because by visiting Georgia here and walking around the city, and not just visiting for the World Tourism Day, and I must thank you, Zurab, our Secretary General, for incorporating that innovative aspect of the program, because it actually gave us a real feel of what it is like to be in Georgia. And it's erased all the fears that maybe other people may have had. So I think it's really critical for us, to move around more, to understand cultures, because that's the only way that we can influence peace from a global perspective. So what we're doing in Sierra Leone, because we do have a lot of bad publicity, sometimes you Google Sierra Leone, and the first thing you get to see is the civil war, a war that's ended several years ago. So what we're doing aggressively is to speak to our social media actors, news outlets, for them to post something positive and find a way to erase the negativity that has permeated, the news outlets. And we're asking other people to do that, because Africa as well has one of the most authentic aspects of tourism. If we're talking about beauty, we're looking at the people, we're looking at the authentic products that we have. Africa is one place. I mean, I was just talking to my colleague a moment ago about the fantastic wildlife that I enjoyed. Things like the Victoria Falls. You come to Sierra Leone, we've got Bonds Island, the most authentic aspect in the transatlantic slave trade. So there are products that I think are more important to focus on rather than the negatives, because everywhere you go, there will be some amount of conflict, but it depends on how you package it. So let's find a way to reach out more, to post something positive, because that's the way we can influence global peace, using tourism as the one and only vehicle that can bring people together. Thank you.
I think it's a fascinating point, Madam Minister, if I can stay with you, because you're also saying tourism not just can be an agent of peace and a catalyst for peace building, it can actually be a fantastic tool to rebuild an image and rebrand a country that has experienced conflict. Perhaps you would want to share very quickly one strategy or a couple of strategies that have really worked in reestablishing the national identity of Sierra Leone after the conflict.
So what we did, first of all, we developed a brand, the Explore Freedom brand. And then we also named the Western chimpanzee, which is becoming extinct, as the national animal. And we have gone on a very aggressive marketing campaign strategy, reaching out to our people in country for them to understand the value of tourism. And that's what we're doing through the Tourism for All campaign. And with the Women's Congress, coming up, that's being done in collaboration with UN Tourism in October, the 29th to the 31st of October, that is going to be another platform which we will use to advance women's cause within Africa. So we understand that the media needs to be more supportive to women, supporting women within the landscape, the tourism landscape, and building their capacity, going beyond empowerment. So let's say, for example, we have several women who are working, as artisans, craftsmanship, and several other sectors within the African continent. They may have some access to finance, but what about the access to digital markets? How can we open up this conversation? How can we get a conversation at the continental level to ensure that policies are incorporated that protect and advance women